Welcome to this latest edition of the Real Deal Podcast. I'm your host, Ril Dil Quinn, on a Tuesday. Excuse me. Trying to make the week go by faster. It is actually Tuesday. Recording here as we get ready, just 2 days away from the NBA Finals. Finals kickoff Thursday night at OKC, Oklahoma City, making their first Finals appearance since 2012. Pacers, of course, the last time they were in the finals was 25 years ago. We're going to get right into the finals here. Before we get into the matchup, you're going to hear a lot of talk, if you already haven't heard it, about ratings, small market, so on, so on. I think, frankly, for the direction that the NBA is going in, and for what the NBA is looking like in 2025, I absolutely think that this is the best possible finals, period, point blank. And I will tell you why. Um, the NBA, at a certain point, LeBron James, Stephen Curry, and Kevin Durant are going to retire at some point. They're not going to play that much longer. You have to move forward in any corporation, anything, any business. It's just a part of it. Is the natural course of life. And to me, this I like, the thing about this, Oklahoma City was not even on Christmas Day. They were not even like, everybody knew Oklahoma City was going to be a great team this year. There were people when they signed Hartenstein and traded for Alex Caruso. It was people. There were people who said, "Hey, that team's going to come out the West and possibly win a championship." I picked them to come out the West. I picked them to come out of the West and win a championship. So it wasn't a secret that OKC was going to be a great team this year. Now, did we say 68 games or the highest point differential in NBA history? No, I don't think anybody predicted that. But we knew how good OKC was going to be. The fact that they were not on Christmas Day was just a failure by the NBA. And again, the NBA has to move forward. You have to develop these young stars. Halliburton is 25, SGA is 26. You have to market these younger players outside of moving past, again, the LeBrons, KDs, and Steph Currys. That's just the reality of the situation, the reality of where the NBA is at now. And again, this is the best possible finals from that standpoint. Now the ratings are going to take a hit. You're talking about two small market teams that are ranked like in the 40s. One of it ranked like in the 40s in terms of market size. We're talking about two teams that don't have a great history behind them. Even with the Pacers, Pacers have 3 ABA championships, and Oklahoma City, obviously had some excellent years. Got to the finals with the Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and James Harden led team back in 2012. But these are not by any these are not historical blue blood franchises by any stretch of the imagination. But what they are two teams. They are what the NBA is going to look like in the future. Depth, having a superstar perimeter player, versatility, and great coaching, and two great front offices. And these are two model franchises from that standpoint. OKC right now is the model franchise in terms of how they're set up, in terms of for the future. And you got to give Indiana all the credit in the world. They drafted Miles Turner. You make the trade for Halliburton. You make the trade for Neesmith. They developed it. Nimhart. They developed Neesmith. They get the trade for Oben Toppin. Obi Toppin. They got, I mean, they had guy Indiana had guys off the bench. They told like Ben Shepherd, Thomas Bryant. Like they have done these two franchises empower their role players. Oh, and it doesn't come over the playoffs. It comes during the regular season. So Thomas Bryant can come into a game 6 and knock down three threes and score like 15 points when he had been benched. Like, think about it. This guy had been benched. The only reason he played in that game is because Tony Bradley got hurt. So this is what your franchise with the luxury tax being what it is, the second apron. Nobody wants to go into the second apron. Not even the richest of teams. Not even the billionaires who have endless pockets. Nobody wants to pay a $500 million tax bill. Nobody wants to pay that shit. The Celtics don't want it. The Celtics won't pay it this year for obvious reasons. But they wouldn't. They would have had a major decision on their hands, even if Jason Tatum wouldn't have got hurt. The fact that he got hurt made that decision much easier, and the fact that they got knocked out in the second round made that decision much easier. So this is what the NBA is going to look like. Um, you still have to draft. You still have to nail the draft. You still have to absolutely develop talent in a major way. So this matchup, I'm not as we getting close as we've gotten closer to as we get closer to the finals. I'm not uh don't have any more confidence in the fact that Indiana will make this a competitive series as I did when I was thinking about this matchup after they went up 3-1 against the Knicks. Um, these are two fast-paced teams. Both of them want to play fast. They both rank first and second in pace. Um, Indiana ranked fifth during regular season, ranked fifth during regular season in fast break points. OKC eighth. Um, Both of them, of course, have dynamic point guards who play completely different styles. Halliburton more of a distributor. Shea SGA, of course, is the league's best scorer right now. Led the NBA in scoring and does it efficiently. But here's the bottom line to me is just the amount of athletes that when I look at the matchup, the key matchup in this series is going to be Indiana's offense versus OKC's defense. Indiana has played some great offense in these playoffs. They've been nearly unstoppable. Only had one game where they were held under 100 points, and that was against the Knicks in game 5 where they got their doors blown off and only scored 94 points. Played their worst, but by the way, even like played their worst game in the playoff. Along with the game 3 against Cleveland in the semifinals. Excuse me, in the semifinals. But Oklahoma City has the personnel. They have a number of guys they can throw at Halliburton. Oklahoma City does not turn over the ball. Oklahoma City was one of the best, at getting back in transition. Indiana has an average half court. They are an average half court team. They're not very good in half court. Indiana, and even in the game against the Knicks in game 6, they constantly beat the Knicks down the court, even off made baskets. I promise you, you will not see them beating Oklahoma City down the court off a made basket. I promise you that. That's just not going to happen. And to me, when you limit Halliburton, um, that completely that disrupts everything from Indiana perspective. Like Halliburton and Halliburton absolutely should have been MVP of the series. And I'm not crazy about those conference finals or MVP conference finals awards, but Halliburton absolutely should have been MVP of that series because he controls the pace of the game. He's not only the team's clearly their best player, but he controls the pace of the game. He drives he makes that offense special. period, point blank. Siakam has been phenomenal since he got to Indiana, and they back to back years they've been in the conference finals and NBA finals. And that a big part of that is a big part of that is the fact that they traded for Siakam, and of course in the winter of 2024, to get to the to kind of put them over the top from that standpoint. But they the matchup is just not it is a clear mismatch to me with these two teams. Indiana, the Thunder at -700 are the largest favorites in the finals since the 2018 Golden State. If you're wondering, the largest favorites in the finals history was the 2001 Lakers, were a -2000. They were favored to sweep. That's the only time that team I think has ever been favored to sweep the NBA Finals. Of course, they won in 5 games. So, what has to happen to me for Indiana to even make this competitive is they have to absolutely shoot the lights out. They have to absolutely shoot the lights out, and Halliburton has to absolutely have the series of his life. Um, they're not going to win the bench battle. Like that bench battle, they have to win the bench battle. But again, you're talking about a team that is frankly has more quality players, or as good as Indiana's bench is. Um, Oklahoma City's bench is better and deeper. So it's like, you're trying to find out where, Indiana, uh, where Indiana can hurt, where Indiana can hurt OKC. And I guess, like, we've seen OKC struggle with, we've seen OKC struggle on the road at times during this postseason. Like they've had perplexing performances on the road. They were getting destroyed in game 3 against Memphis. Ja Morant gets hurt. They come back and win that game and end up sweeping. They, you know, they get blown. They get destroyed in Minnesota by 42 points in game 3 as well. So there have been at times where they've been shaky on the road. Um, and then they've been just all time great at home. Like what they're doing at home, and they're having one of the most dominant runs in NBA history as far as point differential at home. So Indiana has been great, but the problem is Indiana has not been, you know, they haven't played some of the greatest basketball at home. We saw them shaky. We saw them almost lose to Milwaukee in game 5 when they got down by by 20 points. We saw them, lose a home game 3, up by 14 points against the Knicks. So Indiana has had some shaky performances at home as well. But I'm thinking of how Indiana can attack Oklahoma City. And to me, I just don't see them having enough shot creators. Like, I can zero in on Halliburton, right? I can do like the Knicks, and I'll get to the Knicks later on, but the Knicks, we saw what the Knicks did in game 5 in that series to help push the series into game 6. They pressured Halliburton up high on Miles Bridges. Again, a adjustment that was too little too late in terms of the series, but I kind of threw Indiana off for at least a game. Well, Miles Bridges wouldn't even crack the top 8 probably defensive players on OKC. Like they have, again, Case and Wallace. You have guys, Lou Dort, Alex Caruso, who I'm sure will be attacking Halliburton up high early on from the point of attack as soon as he crosses half court. And I guess, if you're Indiana, do you really I mean, Indiana has to play fast. So like they have no choice but to play fast in this series. Uh when I've seen Oklahoma City struggle at times, it's been in half court when the game has slowed down. Like I've we watched Minnesota slow them down. Um, I would say in the first half of game one and that entire game five, excuse me, game four. And we saw Denver, get them have a couple games um, where you know, where it was a half court game and they forced Oklahoma City to execute. That's the thing about it. Indiana to even have a chance in the series. And I would say like right now, and I don't think it'll be a sweep. I think Indiana will get one game. For Indiana to even be competitive, they have to make Oklahoma City execute in the half court at a high level. And we've seen Oklahoma City execute when they've had to, whether it be game 4 and 5 against Denver, especially in the fourth quarters of those games. Um, we've seen them execute in the half court in clutch situations and when the pressure is on. And we've seen what that looks like. And I just think that I think, this Indiana has to play a near. I haven't felt like this about a final series, and trying to think like probably since 2018. I thought Golden State was going to handle. I thought Golden State was going to handle Toronto, but not like. But they still Kawhi was playing great, but I did think Golden State was going to handle Toronto. So I maybe 2019. I did think Golden State was going to overwhelm Toronto, but of course that was not the case with that's Kevin Durant. I did think Golden State would beat Toronto, but I would say 2018 as well. We knew that was a complete mismatch with basically LeBron by himself against that juggernaut Warriors team that the second last year of their 3 straight finals appearances with KD. Of course, they made 5 straight finals overall. But I just don't see a pathway for Indiana to win this series. I just don't see it. I think Oklahoma City right now, they clearly were the best team um, in the regular season. They've been not as good, but they've been even better defensively than they in the postseason than they have in the regular season. We've seen them pass all the major tests. The 7-game war against Denver. They get smacked by 42 in game 3 against Minnesota, and then they just absolutely take Minnesota behind the woodshed. Then they absolutely just take over the series, and they win a great game, and they win a great game in 4 where Minnesota plays unbelievable basketball offensively, and they still able to survive that on the road and win a great gut check game, and then absolutely put the hammer down in game 5. So I like Oklahoma City is. I think Indiana, and I think Indiana is who they are as a team. We've seen them at their best. They are who they are. Which is a very good team. Oklahoma City is still evolving. Like they've literally improved as the playoffs have gone along. To be honest with you, like remember these guys, this is only their second. This is their first playoff run altogether. When you add the guys like Caruso, you talk about adding guys like Caruso as a whole with Caruso and Hartenstein, who were not there last year. But in terms of their core, this is only their second playoff run. When you talk about the core of SGA, Chet, Jalen Williams, and some of their other about 3 or 4 of their other role players, and in terms of the SGA, Chet, Jalen Williams, again, they're only their second postseason together, but they're still evolving as to a point to where you've seen how comfortable SGA, Jalen Williams, and Chet are playing with each other. Like there'll be stretches of a game where Jalen Williams takes over the game SGA is playing off the ball. SGA is a more than willing cutter or passer. Or you'll see moments where Chet gets featured, not so much with post ups, but coming off screens that hit wide open threes. So I'm not trying to discourage anybody. I would still watch it from a contrasting styles. I love the great offense versus the great defense. That's fun. The 2 point guards. I'm fascinated to see what Carlisle has up his sleeve. We know he's a tremendous coach, a great coach, and certainly absolutely coached circles around the now fired Tom Thibodeau in the Knicks series, and we'll get to that later on. So I'm not listen, Carlisle. Listen, Carlisle has been in this position before. If you remember, 2011 came in with basically again another a 1-star team, excellent role players, different styles of play. There's that Dallas team versus the Indiana team was completely different in terms of contrast and in terms of the type of basketball they played. With Dirk Nowitzki being their featured player versus Halliburton, but he came in a major underdog against the Heatles, and that Heatles team was loaded. All those guys in their primes. LeBron, best player in the world at that point, and they shocked the world. They completely shocked the world. Beat the Heatles in six games. So Carlisle has been here before, and he's been on the other side. They were not a super heavy favorite, but they were favored in 2006 against Shaq and Dwayne Wade. Got up 2-0, were dominating the series. Looked like they were going to sweep Miami, if you remember. And again, I understand that's a tough one for Dallas fans because Dwayne Wade shot about 500 free throws in that series. And there was some very suspect calls, especially in that game, in that game 5 that forced the series back to that gave Miami the 3-2 lead. That gave Miami the 3-2 lead. Going back to Dallas, and they of course went in 6. But Carlisle. Listen, it's hard to bet against Carlisle. Not hard to bet against Carlisle from this standpoint, but he will have some shit up his sleeve. He will have some wrinkles, some adjustments. He will have something, and I'm very curious to see what that something will be. But again, I just think that this is a absolute complete mismatch. Oklahoma City is an interesting team from the standpoint of they don't have to shoot. They don't have to dominate the boards to beat you. They don't have to shoot threes to beat you. They win this thing called the possession battle, where during during these playoffs, the turnover they've been +6 in the turnover differential, and during the regular season they averaged 6 more shots than their opponents. So they again it puts them in a position where they don't have to knock down a bunch of threes. If they're hitting threes, they're gonna they're gonna just you have zero chance if they're making threes. You have no chance. They're only in this postseason. They're only shooting 33% from the 3 in this postseason, and they're 12-4. So that just lets you know the 3-pointer is a luxury, not a necessity for OKC. They're gonna get you with the turnover battle. They turn you over and they don't turn over the basketball. And they're gonna get more than likely. They're gonna get more shots. They find a way to get more shots. So it is an uphill battle to say the least for Indiana. They deserve all the credit for getting to the finals. But we felt all yellow. I felt outside of Boston, we know that the Eastern Conference was not very good this year. OKC, not OKC, the Celtics and Cavaliers beat up on a bunch of teams, beat up on some bad Eastern Conference teams. That's why you had 2 60-win teams in the Eastern Conference. When you look at from top to bottom, it really wasn't close. In terms of the Eastern Conference, they turned from west to east. And I say that because, OKC just dominated the entire conference, and you had some high quality teams in the Western Conference. You had Minnesota's, you had Denver's, you had the Clippers. Those are very very good basketball teams, to say the least. So I expect this to be a 5 game series. I don't think it will be a sweep. I like Oklahoma City has been, like I said, they've had some immature moments over the course of the playoffs. They've had some moments where their defense always has not traveled on the road at times. We saw that. Um, we certainly saw that in again against we saw that 2 games against Minnesota in games 3 and 4. Minnesota played great offense, but what only came up with the game 3 blowout win. And we saw Denver do some things in game 3. No, that game could have easily went to OKC. Could have easily went to OKC. That was more about SGA struggling in that particular game. So, but I will pick Oklahoma City in 5. Hopefully, hopefully we get 6 games. But I think 6 games in this series is absolutely asking a lot. Go around the playoffs, and the timing of what happened transpired today couldn't be better. I never root for somebody to lose their job, but to the Knicks, I was going to do this segment regardless of what transpired with Tibbs today. I was going to do this segment on discussing what the Knicks' future could look like and what needs to happen. But obviously, number one thing right now is they got to find a new coach. And Tom Thibodeau, Coach Tibbs is out after 5 years. He made the playoffs in 4 of those seasons, had the back-to-back 50-win seasons, of course, led them to the conference finals this season for the first time since 2000. Here's why Tom Thibodeau was fired. The Nick brass clearly thought that this was a finals team at worst, if not a championship team. They gave up last offseason. They gave up, when you talk about the Bridges and the Cat trades, they gave up 6 first-round picks, including Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo. 5 of those first-round picks being unprotected. Okay. So, yeah, getting to the conference finals, and remember this. Remember, even if you as a Knicks fan didn't have championship expectations, right? Even if you were happy to get to the conference finals or surprised, if not both, the Knicks came into this season as the second favorite to win the NBA championship behind the Boston Celtics preseason wise. They were the second favorite. So expectations were extremely high across the board. And when you think about it, and this is a clear, when I say this is going to be a clear glass half empty perspective. If I give up, so the Knicks were in the conference semifinals last year, got to a game 7. They get to game 6 of the conference finals this year. They improve 1 round. You trade 6 first-round picks and a above average role player in Dante DiVincenzo, and you only improve 1 round. That's what it comes down to. It's not like you went from the first round to the finals, or you went from the second round to a championship. You went from the second round to the conference finals, from the conference semis to the conference finals, in a bad Eastern Conference, in a situation where you slayed the dragon, you took out Boston, and you had a absolute winnable series against Indiana. I'm not saying that they should have beaten Indiana, that they were clearly better. No. I picked Indiana before the series. I respected Indiana, but one of the major reasons why I picked Indiana to win the series was 2 reasons. I followed Indiana closely since the All-Star break and have been kind of watching how great they have been, especially in the month of in March and April, in February, from the All-Star break on. But the number one reason why I picked Indiana to win that series was because of coaching. I said Carlisle will be the difference in the series. Period. Point blank. He will make moves, press buttons that Thibodeau will not. And over the course of this series, you know, like Thibodeau Tibbs made adjustments. They just came too little, too late. Like he made lineup changes. He went to came on. Jason Hart comes off the bench. He starts Mitchell Robinson. He, he pressured Halliburton in game 5. The problem is that adjustment came in game 5. He even used his bench, Shaman and DeLon Wright and what have you. He played at times played 9 guys. The problem is that came in May instead of the regular season when habits are developed. So again, too little, too late in terms of playing your roster, playing your using your bench guys, empowering those guys, and making some of the adjustments, being late to the table with some of the adjustments that he made or lack thereof. But the biggest reason to me is the Knicks were too flawed of a team from a standpoint of how they played stylistically, offensively. They a lot of dribbling. They count on a lot of individual skill and talent with their 3 top guys in Brunson, Cat, and OG. Um, and you look at the Knicks, like you look at the Knicks in the regular season, they had the 5th. They were ranked 5th in terms of offensive rating. In the postseason, that fell to 7th out of 16 teams. That's not very good. That's bad. Five out of 30 is great. 7 out of 16 is horrible. It's just not good enough. It's just not. It's not going to win you a championship, especially when you're playing, when your defense, was middle of the pack in the playoffs, just like it seemingly was at the lower middle of the pack during the regular season. So that's what costed Tom Thibodeau his job. But this is not all on Tom Thibodeau because, again, he did not make the moves to trade Miles Bridges for 5 first-round picks. The Cat trade, I wasn't crazy about it, but I understood it. Like, you need a big man. Randall couldn't play with Brunson, period, point blank. The Miles Bridges trade, the Knicks, they're still paying for that trade because you gave up almost all your draft capital for a guy who has never been an All-Star, has never been on an All-NBA team, and will never be mistaken for a guy that could be the best player on a franchise on a playoff team, let alone the best player on a team that that could do anything. He is a excellent role player. That's what he was in Phoenix. And I know he put up some numbers in Brooklyn on horrible teams, but that Miles Bridges trade, that's a trade that, that's when I getting back to what I was talking about at the top, you can't miss on those trades. You absolutely can't miss on those trades. That one, it's like if you could have got 3 draft, if you could have gave up only 2 first rounders instead of 5, you'd be in good shape, actually. You would have 3 first round picks to play with as far as tradable draft assets to add to your team. Now you basically you don't. They have minimum assets. They had now you can trade the Miles Bridges contract for some picks back, but that I don't. Again, they don't have too much flexibility to make a move to add to kind of break up the cat with the Karl-Anthony Towns Brunson dynamic. You cannot have your 2 best players cannot be defensive liabilities. Period, point blank. And good luck trying to move Karl-Anthony Towns. He's making 50. He's gonna be making over $50 million next year. I think 58 million next year. Like you're not like nobody. I'm not paying a guy. Nobody. If I'm trading for a guy who's making that type of money, he better take me to the finals. No, not even conference finals. and you better take me to the finals. And Karl Anthony Towns is what, 29 years old. So it's not like he is who he is at this point. He's not going to get any better. And again, what I mean, he's not going to get any better. He's still one of the 15 to 20 best players in the league. He made third team All NBA this year. He's been All NBA a couple times in his career. He's an All Star, had a great season this year, no doubt about it. But that guy cannot be the best guy on your team. And then if somebody trades for him, that team he trades for, more than likely he's probably going to be their best guy, because you have to give up. You have to give up so many trade assets to get a Karl Anthony Towns. I mean, the market is not going to be there for Karl Anthony Towns. It's just not. There's a market for Bridges because he's on a great contract. So there's a market for Bridges at $24 million. So if I'm the Knicks, I think the Knicks, probably will be stuck with this team in terms of the core. So you'll probably Cat, Brunson, OG, those guys will be back, and you'll have a situation where they'll probably try to improve with the role players. Those 7, 8, 9, 10 guys, and take it from there. But this is a big off season because another reason why Tibbs was fired. There's a 2-year window you have for the Eastern Conference. Boston is a non-factor next year. Indiana will go in next season as the favorite. Again, this is expected to be an explosive summer moves, but as of right now, Indiana will go into next year as the favorite. And you got a bunch of question marks. Cleveland is a question mark. Orlando is a question mark. Milwaukee is a major question mark. There are more questions than answers in the Eastern Conference. So the Knicks, again, you have a 2-year window. Brunson's 28, undersized guard. Dude, how many more years that he has at this level, that he can play at this level? So this is a major offseason for the Knicks. I don't think that you can move Cat, to be honest with you. You could try to move Bridges. That'd be the move that I would try to make, to get some picks back, and you can get a rotation player back and maybe another first round pick back as a trade asset at best. Certainly not gonna get anywhere close to those picks that you gave up to get him, because he's not viewed upon like that. He's not held in that regard around the league. So you might be able to get one first round back and a rotation player, possibly, maybe. It might be a situation where you can only you might want to move them for a couple of first round picks and use those as trade assets. But the moves that they make are going to have to be on the edge, fringe to their to their 8th, 9th, 10th guys, 7 through 10 guys. And again, you can improve your basketball team. If you're telling me you're coming in with a coach that's going to tighten up on how you run offense, that's going to slightly improve your defense, you add a quality 8 and 9 guy, that might be good enough to possibly get you to the NBA Finals next year. But again, I don't have any problem with Tibbs getting fired. They have reached their ceiling with Tibbs. You're not when you just were not going to win a championship with Tibbs as your head coach. Just offensively, that just wasn't going to happen. Per se, took listen. This happens. We saw this happen to Rick Carlisle back in 2003. Yeah, you got fired from Detroit. They bring in Larry Brown. Larry Brown takes them to the next level, and they win a championship. Though unlike Carlisle, I don't foresee that Tom Thibodeau will take a team to the chip anytime soon. As far as candidates, of course you're going to hear Michael Malone. You're going to hear certain names. Sam Cassell. I've heard like somebody put Meta World Peace. I don't like. What are we talking about here? That you know. You may hear the likes of Jeff Van Gundy. Um, I'll listen. I'll put it to you this way. I don't think the Knicks are going to go the assistant coach route or the college route. Then forget about the college. You can so eliminate Calipari, eliminate Hurley, eliminate any college guy. They're not going. You're not. No, you're not doing. You're not going college. So eliminate the college guys. I don't see a guy not being. I think Michael Malone would be the obvious kind of somewhat the not the obvious choice, but I think Michael Malone would be kind of like the leader in the clubhouse. I don't see them going with an assistant or a college guy. You can't bring in a college guy in New York City. That shit is not gonna work. It's not gonna fly. So, if Van Gundy, Van Gundy it'd be interesting if Van Gundy came back. We know he did a phenomenal job as the kind of like the defensive coordinator of the Clippers. Of course he understands New York. Did a great job. I know even though it didn't end well with the Knicks back in 2001, but we know Jeff Van Gundy can coach basketball. Again, had excellent, great success with the Knicks. Got to the finals, had some decent playoff runs with the Houston Rockets. Um, Again, I think Malone, will probably I would get will if I had to make a choice, I probably think that Malone will be the guy that will be the next head coach of New York Knicks. But we've seen crazier things happen in the NBA as far as surprise coaching hires, especially in the last 4 to 5 years. Okay, so a couple years ago, the deep dive is my superstar list 2.0. If you remember 3 years ago, I did a superstar list with one Robert Sapp, had a lot of fun with it. One, the criteria, we really only had two major criteria at that time. One, you had to at least take your team to the conference finals. And two was durability. So I'm adding one to I'm at one. Um I'm at two per se. I thought one of them might be obvious as far as the criteria, but I didn't mention that officially last time. So here are the criteria. Here are the criteria. At least one All NBA appearance. Of course, you have to at least one conference finals appearance. Durability. Um, Minimum, you have to be a top 15 guy right now. So if you're on this, if I list a guy that's on here, I believe that he's a top 15 player. All right. Let's go with the obvious, the three that you see up here. Joker, Giannis, SGA. Those are three. We're not even that are superstars. It's not I don't even think they even need any explanation. So Joker, SGA, Giannis, Luka, Anthony Edwards, Jalen Brunson, and Tyrese Halliburton. Now, I don't think I have to explain. I like even Luka. I don't think I have to explain that one. I understand, this season they got knocked out in the first round. Still only 25 years old. He took his team to an NBA Finals. So from that standpoint, it's been the two conference finals. Anthony Edwards took a lot of heat this season. Here's the bottom line. And again, he's 23. He's 23 and he's already been in two conference finals in the Western Conference. Without question, Anthony Edwards is a top 10 player. I think he's probably a top 6 to 7. Like maybe right now with Tatum out, I think could make a case he's a top 5 to 7 player. Tatum was not on this list. I can't, even though if he was healthy, he absolutely would be on this list. Tatum had to be removed from this list because of the catastrophic Achilles injury. So we have to revisit that probably in another, next time we do this list. Next time Tatum plays, we'll see what it looks like in 2 years. But Tatum, I had to remove him from this list. You don't get a spot. You don't get a spot grandfathered in because of what you've done in the past with this type of injury. I can't reward it. You can't. Durability is part of it. So Tatum Tatum is not on this list. Jalen Brunson, I think, is kind of an obvious one from the standpoint he almost single-handedly changed the culture of a team that had been one of the worst franchises not only in the NBA but in all the sports. got to a conference finals this year. He's been an All NBA a couple times. A legitimate top 10 player. I don't think it's we finished 10th in the MVP battle. Despite his size, only barely being 6 foot, he has been very extremely durable. Basically, I know he missed some games this year, but in the playoffs, he's been fantastic in the postseason and have been durable in the playoffs. So those are the 7 guys. And no, okay, Halliburton. So Tyrese Halliburton, back to back seasons. Yes, I think Tyrese Halliburton is a top 15 player right now. You talk about back to back seasons leading your team to the conference finals. You want to say the first one was a fluke? Okay, I'm coming back the second one and lead my team down to a conference finals, but to the NBA finals. Um, he again controls the pace of the game, pushes the ball as well as any point guard in the league, and he does not turn over the basketball. Okay, so I protect. He can protect the ball, can shoot the ball, can score when you ask when needed to, and is not a statue on defense. I actually think he participates on defense. He's still going to get picked on and attacked, but he's not like a complete zero on defense. Like we've seen Luka at times. We've seen Jalen Brunson struggle at times to that on that level. So I think Halliburton right now absolutely is a top 15 player. He made third team All NBA this year. Um, and I think again, no one, and I mean no one expected this Indiana team to be anywhere near the NBA finals. No one expected them to be in the conference finals. So he is the biggest reason for that. So he is the last person on this superstar list. So by my criteria, you have 7 superstars. 7. Now, here comes the fun part. Let's look at the guys who I left off. Nothing lasts forever. LeBron James, Stephen Curry, Kevin Durant. Oh, I also left Jimmy Butler off there too. So I should have added his name, Jimmy Butler as well. But these are the 3. So these 3 guys, that's why I put nothing lasts forever. These 3 guys have, of course, dominated the NBA for the better part of close to 2 decades. Been the faces of the league, especially with James and Curry. And 2 of these guys made at least second team All NBA this year in LeBron and Stephen Curry. You say, Surreal, what the fuck are you talking about here? These are 3 of the top probably 15 players of all time. Some might say 2 of the top 10 in terms of James and Curry. There are arguments that people try to argue LeBron for greatest of all time. There are arguments that have Curry for greatest point guard of all time. I disagree vehemently with both those arguments. They're still debate, and they're still being considered to be debatable arguments. Here's one of my criterias. What was one of my criterias? At least, can you be the best player? Are you the best player on the team that can get to a conference finals? And these guys cover these guys cover all the other criterias. Even from a durability standpoint, these guys were, for the most part, were durable this year, considering their advanced ages. I don't think any of these players right here, right now, and again, this list is about projection. This is not about the past. It's not about the past. This is about I'm projecting towards next year. I don't think any of these guys could be the best player on a team that can get to a conference finals. And if you're not the best player on a team that can get to a conference finals, in my opinion, you're not a superstar. It's not like superstar is not a lifetime membership. It's not. It's just this is not how it works. If the Lakers ever get to a conference finals and beyond next year, Luka will be their best player. I don't think Golden State has the personnel to get to the conference finals with Steph Curry as their best player, as currently constructed. I just don't think so. I would have to believe it was unfortunate that Curry didn't get like. I think for me to believe that that could have been a possibility next year, I think Golden State probably would have had to get to the finals this year, not the conference finals, but the NBA finals. Because even I would have said, hey, they beat the Lakers. Even I would have said, hey, they beat Minnesota. They got destroyed by OKC. It would have happened if Curry were healthy. But that's again, that's neither here nor there because Curry was hurt. That's part of my thing. Durability. And I can bring up durability as well. Curry couldn't stay healthy in the playoffs this year. Let you know a little secret. He's not getting any younger. So we're talking about being able to stay healthy for at least for 4 rounds in the playoffs, for at least minimum 3 rounds of the playoffs. Minimum. And again, Curry is going to be 38. I'm sorry. I don't think I think they would need to get somebody like Giannis on the team for them to get to the conference finals, if not to the NBA, if not win a championship. And again, that's not and Kevin Durant, I think goes without saying. Like Kevin Durant, Kevin Durant this year, and that team was relatively healthy with Booker and Beal, and they were 10 games under 500. So I absolutely Kevin Durant hasn't been, and mind you, let's look at the last time these guys were in the conference finals, right? If you want to say, well, they're still playing at a high level. Kevin Durant hasn't been in the conference finals since 2019. That was when he was with his last year at Golden State. He hasn't sniffed the conference final. Like the first Kevin Durant has been since that time was the second round. They got smoked. They lost, of course, a tough 7-game series against Milwaukee in 21. They got smoked by Boston Celtics in 22. 23, they lose to Denver in the second round in 6 games. They get smoked by Minnesota in the first round in 24. So, like that, I mean, that's Kevin Durant's basically last 6 years. Steph Curry hasn't been in the conference finals since 2022, the year they won a championship. So next year it would be 4 years. 4 years is an eternity in the NBA. It's an eternity. That championship was a long time ago in the NBA. A lot could happen in 4 years. LeBron James would have not been in the conference finals going back to since 2023. Again, they got smoked by Denver in that series, and that was a year where the Lakers really caught a break with how soft the West was. If you having like 2 teams, you had Sacramento and Memphis had 2 of the best records. Again, that was a soft Western Conference. That's why Golden State and the Lakers took out Sacramento, took out the second and third seeds in terms of Sacramento, and getting the brain fart here. The Golden State took out Sacramento. Lakers took out Memphis. Sorry, so took out Sacramento and Memphis in that 2023 year. But again, it will be 3 years. A lot happens in 3 years. Again, nothing lasts forever in the NBA. And this is my personal opinion, based off my criteria, these guys right here, right now, are no longer on the court wise. We're not talking about endorsements. We're not talking about marketing ability. We're talking about strictly basketball. They don't cover. They are not superstars. And again, you do have to consider the money standpoint as well, from the standpoint of how much of the salary that they take up. They're getting paid like supermax players. And by the way, no problem with those. At the time when they signed those contracts, you can make a case that they were worthy of those supermax contracts. Right now, if you can't get me to the conference finals, I'm sorry, you're not a supermax player. You're just not at this stage in your career. Like a supermax player has to at least be able to get me to the conference finals. No, they're not superstars. I know you're going to hear a number of analysts and fans think that these 3 guys are superstars, based off the numbers they put up. They might make all NBAs, but here's the bottom line: none of these guys, none of these guys have made it past the second round as the team's best player. Anthony Davis won a championship as the second best player. Kyrie Irving won a championship as the second best player. In Kyrie, Anthony Davis, durability is an issue. We know this because they both are always hurt. Kyrie's hurt right now. Anthony Davis is Anthony Davis. And Donovan Mitchell, now he's the closest one that you could debate with me about. He is been on, was first team All NBA this year. Been on is a legit top 10 player. But the problem is never been the best player on the team that's made it past the second round. This year he was on a 64-win team and they got smoked by the Indiana Pacers. I'm a Donovan Mitchell fan. He's had some big playoff games, but I can't call you a superstar if you can't get your team to at least the conference finals. That's not asking a lot. It's not. And a guy that I left off here, of course, Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler has durability because he's been to the NBA Finals a couple times as the best player. But at this stage in his career, he's no longer a top 15 player, and he has durability issues. So you probably need Jimmy to be about your third best player to get to be realistically to get to a conference finals, let alone your first or your second. So there we go. I think there are 7 legitimate superstars in the NBA, and I don't think that list includes LeBron James, Steph Curry, or Kevin Durant. Best of the 21st century, Erykah Badu with Mama's Gun. This came out in the year 2000. It was her second album following up a classic by 1997, Baduism in 1997. And I listened to the album last night, or re-listened to it last night, and also listened to Baduism this as well. I'm going to say it I'm saying say it here, say it right here, right now. There have been a number of years where I thought this album was better than Baduism. Baduism is not. And the reason I say, I just think that if you're going to make the analogy, the comparison I would make would be The Godfather 1 to The Godfather 2. Like, The Godfather 2 is arguably the best, greatest sequel ever made. But there was something about, you had Marlon Brando, Jimmy Caan, James Caan, Clemenza character. Like, there were characters that they had in Godfather 1 that I don't think they could be matched in with Godfather 2. And Godfather 2 was, again, both of them we're splitting hairs here. We're talking about both mega classics. But I think with Badu with this one, with Mama's Gun, you're talking about, it comes out in 2000. Erykah Badu at the time, of course, is the undeniable queen of soul, queen of neo soul. You talk about that whole movement with artists like Bilal, D'Angelo, Jill Scott. This came out in the same year as Jill Scott's first album. Lucy Pearl and Sade. So all those albums came out in the same year. The Lucy Pearl album is one very underrated to say the least. So this album, you're talking about well over an hour long, having songs. The album ends with Green Eyes, which is over 10 minutes long. She had about 3 long songs in this album. And I just thought that the production of this album was better than her first album. And, she's in a place where she's in the midst of having relationship issues with Andre Benjamin. She was in a different space in this album versus her first album. But it's like, you talk about commanding to be like it's just the voice is just her. She has one of the best voices. We talk. If there was a ranking of greatest voices in the history of music, she has to be in the top 50, if not the top like top 30 all of greatest voices. Her voice, it doesn't. I mean, it's hard. It's almost hard to describe her voice. Um, I'm not sure. I'm probably gonna get killed for this take. Like, I'm not sure that she's a great singer per se from or classical or from a classic like in the way that I would think about somebody like Aretha Franklin or Whitney Houston. I mean, I know that's like the apex, but it doesn't even matter. Like, I'm not saying she's a bad singer, but it doesn't. She doesn't. It doesn't even matter. Like her voice is something that we've never heard a voice like it ever. I think in music, I think her voice stands out like that. Like again, it's hard to describe. It's smooth. Is the messages that she's sending through her voice. It's I mean, I'm having a tough time describing it right now, to be honest, perfectly honest with you. But one of the best voices we've ever heard in not only in all of music, not just hip hop or R&B, hip hop, soul, R&B, but that's what stood out to me about the production of this album. The mixture of just the jazz, the 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 tempo switches, and on that song she does the last song Green Eyes, like it felt like it was like three songs in one, and not just because of how long it was, but because of just the temp. She changed up tempo in that song about at least twice, if not three times. And I think with this album, um, obviously you get the top notch production. Her voice is what it is, but I think that like just the storytelling was incredible in this album, and she takes you through this journey um, that really I think it's just, I mean it kind of reminded me of Biggie in his second album, Life After Death. And I know we'll talk about rap versus not from stylistically, but just you could close your eyes and you can just go like that. You can close your eyes and you can feel like you're watching a movie. And that's what she does. That's what she did to me with this album and with her ability to storytell when you get the mixture um of the production. And again, I think this album is absolutely again, it's hard to separate one album, but from you know in all the music. But as far as like the R&B, um, you'd be hard pressed to find a better album in the last 25 years um, than Mama's Gun. And again, to come up again, you get a lot of artists. I thought the next artist that we talk about next artist that I already know who we're gonna talk about in a couple of weeks. To follow up our classic album with another classic, it doesn't happen that often in music. It doesn't. I don't. I can look at the two greatest rappers of all time, Nas and Jay Z. Their second albums were not classics. It rarely happens. You get back to back classics. Biggie did it. Um, Michael Jackson, of course, did it. It doesn't happen that often. It doesn't. I mean, you get sometimes a lot of times you get the one classic, and then you'll get a couple of albums that are pretty good, and then you know maybe you get another classic later in the career. But follow up one mega classic with another mega classic puts you at another level already. That puts you in another space, another place from a from an artist standpoint. So I think for that puts her follow one classic back to back classic albums, undeniable classic albums, really sets you apart. So I again go listen to it again. I strongly recommend it. Best of the 21st Century. Erykah Badu, Mama's Gun. Next week we will have probably we'll probably go movie next week. We'll probably go movie next week. So be stay on the lookout for next for our this continuous segment of Best of the 21st Century. And we're gonna leave you. We're gonna end the show in the podcast with real thoughts, of course. Inside the NBA, will be moving to ESPN next year. They had their final TNT show where they'll be allowed to show highlights and basketball highlights on Saturday, of course. So Barkley did an interview with Dan Patrick yesterday. So there's still some confusion about how the show is going to look moving forward. Barkley said that they actually shot a pilot on TNT where they did it with no basketball highlights. Remember, they did it with no basketball highlights because, of course, the highlights and stuff, they're not going to be allowed to show highlights while they're on TNT. And you're saying, well, hold on, what are we talking about here? I thought they were on ESPN. Their rights are still owned by TNT, but they're licensed to ESPN. So it is some confusion in terms of how it's going to look. They're not going to be on every night, of course. That day is over. Those days are over. They'll do some Christmas stuff, do a lot of playoff stuff. I like ESPN has come out. Front Office Sports had this today. ESPN, of course, has come out and said there's nothing about the show that's going to change. There have been concerns that, ESPN, of course, runs a horrible, horrible post, NBA countdown is horrible. And it's not just because of the talent or because of the talent. They don't get the room. They don't get the talent room to breathe with the segments. Everything is, they run 1,000 commercials. They take up all every single commercial dollar, and basically you have about 90 seconds to make a point. That's not it. They can't do that to inside the NBA, and I don't think they will do that to inside the NBA. But I just wonder again. ESPN is smart. Like ESPN, you don't get to the level that ESPN has gotten to without. And again, you could. I disagree with how ESPN has been moving in the last decade or so. But there's still ESPN, and they still have some smart people working for them. I like. It would look horrible. It would look horrible on behalf of ESPN to fuck inside the NBA up. It's almost impossible. It should be almost impossible to fuck this show up. You're talking about you're talking about arguably the greatest studio sports show of all time in the history of television. Like that is they are on a short list of that. And you have all four of them. Barkley said, he's only doing 2 years. He's been retiring for like the last decade. But so anyway, so if you're ESPN, they have to let this show breathe. Like you can't sit up here and try to conform this show into what you think it should be. And again, they can sit up here and say that they're not going to change the show. There's a lot of egos at ESPN, and you got a lot of guys who think there's some guys, there are a few guys there certainly probably think they're smarter than what they really are. You look how ESPN has been ran in the last decade with how much talent they've lost. And we're not just talking, it's not just budget because ESPN is lacking money here. ESPN has some of the top sports programming. They're making money hand over foot. They've just been making bad personnel decisions, and they've just been making some bad decisions in general in terms of some of their programming, programming. And the fact that, again, when you have just about all the sports, especially the college football and all along with the NFL, you can afford to make some of the mistakes that they can make and not take a hit from a money standpoint because they have the most powerful product in all the sports with the NFL, having the NFL Monday Night Football and having, again, having the NBA and having a lot, having a ton, because having the college football, a lot of college football games. But I don't know what to expect in terms of how this is going to look, and you really shouldn't have, like, as long as those four guys are together, there really shouldn't be any question marks on the fact that this should be a great show. But I don't know. I just don't. You just don't know what it's going to look like moving forward. And again, I if if they fuck it up by any stretch of imagination, none of these guys will not stay for a diminished show, especially Charles Barkley. If Barkley leaves, I think that the show is done. Like, if Barkley says, you know what, fellas, I'm out, I don't see Kenny or Shaq being like just collecting checks and being a part of like season of what, Chappelle show would have looked like if they would have allowed them to run that bullshit season 3. So I like this, Barkley is the key to all this, from a standpoint of, if he was like, you know what, fuck it, I'm not doing this, there will be no inside the NBA. So we'll see what happens with it. Again, I don't, some of the stuff that you heard in regards to the pilot that they shot was like, what? So we're doing a show. We're gonna do a show with no highlights, talking basketball, and have it where we're going to be competing against games that are happening as we're doing the show. Like, that shit makes no sense. That's just idiotic. That's going to wrap it up for this latest edition of the Real Deal Podcast. Enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy game 1 of the NBA Finals. I'll see you next time.